Hello and welcome to another video of Vidhai. In this video, we'll be looking into the chapter Transportation in Plants and Circulation in Animals, and this chapter comes for the NTSE exam. I am Ryan, a volunteer from Vidhai, from the team's Exams Vidhai, where everything is possible. And again, to talk about what we are going to learn in this video, we are going to learn about the animals part of this chapter. Previously, in the part 1 of this chapter, we learned about the plant side, the means of transportation, routes, transpiration, the ascent of sap as well. In animals, we are going to learn about the blood and the type of blood cells, the functions of blood and the blood vessels, the circulatory system, blood pressure group and lymphatic system. And mainly this video probably have a huge explanation for the structure of human heart, and in the textbook as well, structure of the human heart is very much given in most details, and it's also likely to be asked as a question in the NTSE exam. Without further ado, let's go into this video. First things first, blood. So what is blood? Blood is the main circulatory medium in animals. It is a red color fluid connective tissue in human beings. In this chapter, we'll be focusing on human blood mainly. The blood consists of two major components, the plasma and the formed elements. So what is plasma, you may ask, and how does it look like? So this is the definition of plasma, but I would like to have you guys the pictorial representation of plasma. So plasma by definition is the slightly alkaline consisting of non-cellular substance which constitute about 55% of the blood. It has proteins, glucose, enzymes, urea, hormones, vitamins and minerals. While the formed elements of the blood contains RBC, WBC and blood platelets. RBC is also called as erythrocytes, white blood cells called as leukocytes, and blood platelets is called as thrombocytes. So this colorless or more or less liquidish substance that you see is the real life pictorial representation, is the plasma, which contains 55% of the blood. And then you have erythrocytes. This is basically the RBC, which is 45% of the blood. And then you have this white color layer. In this diagram you won't be able to see, but this white color layer is the WBC and the blood platelets. Now we know the composition of blood. Now let's go into detail. The formed elements of blood. So red blood cells are the most abundant cells in the human body. Last slide we have seen it almost covered 1/3 of the blood composition. RBC is formed in bone marrow. Where is bone marrow, you may ask? Bone marrow is inside the bone. And RBC impact a red color due to the presence of hemoglobin, which is rich in iron. So hemoglobin gives the red color to the blood mainly. The lifespan is about 2 months, that is 120 days. And RBC is involved in transportation of oxygen from lungs to heart to other tissues. So this is the WBC. So WBC, in contrast with the RBCs, you can see is just a colorless cell that does not impart any color because it has no pigment of hemoglobin in it. But what did they do? You may ask. They are nucleated cell and don't have hemoglobin. They are also formed with the bone marrow, spleen, thymus and lymph nodes. I also forgot to mention the fact that RBC have no nucleus while WBC have a nucleus. So there are subdivisions of our WBC, that is granulocytes and agranulocytes. So these two are like opposites to each other. You have neutrophils, eosinophils and basophils. Here you have lymphocytes and monocytes. So the difference between these two is that you can, if a question comes like this, like it has 4 options of these combination of 5 words, select the odd one out. You look into the last letters of the word. So phils are granulocytes and cytes are of agranulocytes. So that's one way of looking into how to solve the problem. Let's move on to the platelets. So the platelets are these another colorless cells that is responsible for clotting of blood. and it has a span of 8 to 10 days. So clotting of blood, you may ask what it is. So you may have fallen down when you're playing and then blood starts to come out, and then after some days the blood will stop. It will form like a clot. That is actually called a clot or a scab, you may ask. So that clotting is because of the blood platelets. The functions of blood and the blood vessels. So this is these functions of blood. You will find this in the textbook as well. Basically, it's the transportation of gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide, even food, transportation of hormones. It has access buffer, maintains proper water balance in the body, and so on. I'm skimming through these because it's already written in the textbook, and this extract is also from the textbook. Now the main part of the slide is the blood vessels. There are arteries, veins and capillaries. These three are the main blood vessels that we will be focusing on. So what is artery? You know that's an organ called as heart, and then you have other organs. So heart to other organs, the vein which is responsible of carrying blood is arteries, and the veins that is responsible for carrying blood from other organs to heart is simply called as veins. Capillaries are the conjunction between the artery and the vein. So these capillaries are so thin because the transportation of blood through the organs of the other organs as well is through these capillaries. Capillaries are thin so that the oxygen dissolved in the arteries or in veins will be given to other organs. So this is basically what you have to know. Let me recap. Arteries are carrying blood from heart to other organs. Veins carry blood from other organs to heart. Capillaries are the conjunction between arteries and veins. Now let's take a closer look into the circulatory system and the human heart. The circulatory system are of two types in animals, open type and closed type. Open type are seen mostly in the insects, which they don't have proper blood vessels but rather blood caps. So these blood caps are called as sinuses. And in the closed type, that is we humans possess, have proper blood vessels where the blood travel through. Now here is the introduction to the human heart, where heart is a part of human's circulatory system. Heart is a muscle pumping organ that pumps in out of blood into the blood vessels. Heart is situated between the lungs and slightly towards the left above the diaphragm. So this is more or less where the heart is located into, and this is the parts of the heart. I'll be using this same picture for the next 3 slides. So the human heart. Human heart is enclosed with double-walled sac called pericardium, and it contains lubricating pericardial fluid which reduces friction from heartbeats and protects from mechanical injuries and shocks. Human heart is a 4-chambered one, meaning it has 4 different gaps through which blood goes into. The two upper thin wall of the heart is called as auricle or atria, and the two lower thick walled chambers are called ventricles. The chamber that is separating by the partition is called septum. This part is called as the septum. The septum between auricles and ventricles prevent the mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. The right atrium, that is this one, receives deoxygenated blood from different parts of the body from superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. And the pulmonary veins, these are the pulmonary veins, brings oxygenated blood to the left atrium, that is this part, from the lungs to the left ventricle and on to the aorta and to other organs. The right and the left auricles pump blood into the right and the left ventricles respectively. So if you are confused why is the left is on the right hand side of the picture, that is because if you look into the mirror will show the right as the left and the left as the right. So these texts are given in the textbook from there only, so you don't have to worry. With that being said, valves are the muscular flaps that regulates the flow of the blood. These are the valves. Here it's called the tricuspid valve, and semilunar valves which leaves the heart have seminal valves which prevent backflow of blood into the ventricles. They are the pulmonary and aortic seminary valves. So you have these two small valves here. They are the semilunar valves. Type of blood circulation. You have three types of blood circulation in one case and two types in the other case. So for the first case we have systematic, pulmonary and coronary. The systematic is from heart to organs, the pulmonary is heart to lungs, and coronary is heart to heart itself. In aorta you will have a small arcing system, aorta R, which returns the oxygenated blood back to the heart. And the next part of the blood circulation types is double circulation and single circulation. Double circulation is when a unit blood passes through the heart twice in order to complete a full cycle, and single circulation where the blood goes through the heart once to complete a full cycle. So double circulation is mostly seen in humans and other mammals, while a single circulation is seen in fishes. So the next slide for the human heart will be focusing on the heartbeat. So one complete contraction is called a systole and relaxation is called as diastole. And the one complete cycle is one contraction and a relaxation. So there is 72 to 75 times per minute of heartbeats. Heart is the myogenic in nature, that is, there is a specific heart muscle that is responsible for the heartbeat, and this is called as the sinoarterial node or the SA node, which is situated at the right of the atrium near the superior vena cava. So it should be right around here, so near the atrium. So this is the up part, and right means here in the picture it will be the left part, and it should be right around here near the superior vena cava. The SA node belongs. SA node will act as a pacemaker which is responsible for conducting the heartbeat. So it will send impulses which will tell the heart when to beat and when not to beat in order to make a systematic flow of blood. SA node is often called as heart of heart. So in the topic of heartbeat, we'll go into cardiac cycles, which is one cycle is one contraction and one relaxation. Atrial systole, ventricular systole and ventricular diastole. These are the three sub-processes which happen in a heartbeat, or rather a cardiac cycle. So atrial systole is the contraction of auricles, that is the up part, and ventricular systole is the contraction of ventricles, that is the down part, and ventricular diastole, which is a relaxation of ventricles, that is the down part. So here's the pie chart of how much does a cardiac cycle exist. So the total number of seconds is 0.8 seconds, and here's the atrial systole, ventricular systole and ventricular diastole. The heart sound, when it contracts it gives a lub sound, and when it relaxes it gives a dub sound. So the lub sound is the closure of tricuspid and bicuspid valves, and the dub sound is the closing of semilunar valves. So this is the tricuspid and this is the bicuspid, and that's the lub. And these two small valves that you see on either side of the septum is the dub sound. So blood pressure. Blood pressure is the force exerted during the flow of blood against the lateral walls of arteries or veins. So the systolic pressure is during ventricular systole. The left ventricle contracts, forcing the blood into the aorta, and diastolic pressure is during when the ventricle relaxes, when the pressure falls to the lowest. So you have the systolic pressure to be the highest measured pressure during a heartbeat, and diastole being the lower measured pressure during a heartbeat. So in a healthy adult, the maximum is measured to be about 120 millimeters of mercury and 80 millimeters of mercury for the diastole. So if there's an elevation in blood pressure, it's called as hypertension, and declination of blood pressure is called hypotension. In no case These both events are healthy for a human being, and if one person has high blood pressure or low blood pressure, is recommended to go visit a hospital as soon as possible. Stethoscope is used to detect the sound produced by the internal organs of the human being. Stethoscope is not only used for heartbeats but also the sound for other organs as well. And Spygmometer is a clinical instrument which uses mercury, and that's why you have this mercury unit here to measure pressure. This device, Spygmomanometer, uses mercury as a measuring device. So you have analog way of measuring the blood pressure, and you have the digital way of measuring the blood pressure. Most of the hospitals use the digital way, and some hospitals still uses the analog way. So blood groups, I'll be skimming through this slide, and it's also given in the textbook, so don't worry. The concept of blood grouping was developed by Karl Landsteiner, and here's a picture of him, and he identified blood groups A, B and O. Well, blood group AB was discovered by De Castillo and Steinian. So this is the blood group AB that they discovered in the year 1902, and Landsteiner discovered in 1900. RH factor was discovered by Landsteiner and Weiner in 1940 in a rhesus monkey. The surface of RBC contains antigen for RH factor. RH positive persons will have RH antigen on the surface of the RBC, where RH negative the vice versa. So you have a group blood A with antigen on RBC, antibodies in plasma. It will be the polar opposite if you notice, and you can see this field of can donate and can receive. So what is your activity for now is to mention the group name and these last two fields, as this is so important, as in general knowledge everyone is expected to know this in terms of first aid emergency. Lymphatic system also, I won't be going through this in more details, as this is already in the textbook and you can go through it as well. It's similar to the circulatory system, but instead of blood vessels, here you have lymph vessels, and it is also more or less the open type circulation, well mostly, but here you have lymph nodes and lymphatic duct. Lymph is a colorless liquid just like the plasma in the blood, which also carries plasma, proteins and some blood cells. It reaches into some spaces of organs where the blood cannot reach in. So this lymph is more or less a substitute to the blood circulatory system where it could not reach. So here are the functions of the lymphs. You can even pause the video and see these as well. It's also in the textbook, so don't worry. So let us end this video with another 3 questions as practice. The heart of heart is called as SA node, AV node, Purkinje fibers and bundle of His. The next question states which one of the following regarding blood composition is correct. Plasma is containing blood and lymphocyte. Serum is containing blood and fibrinogen. Lymph is containing plasma, RBC and WBC. Blood is containing plasma, RBC, WBC and platelets. The next question is rather important, I would say. A patient with blood group O was injured in an accident and has a blood loss. Which blood group the doctor should effectively use for transfusion in this condition? Group A, Group AB or B or O, or all the blood groups. You can pause this video and answer to yourself, and now I'll be telling the answers. And the answer for the first question is SA node. I even specifically mentioned this fact in that particular slide. SA node is so important that it is required for the heart to perform well and good. SA node is important. Let me state that fact again. The next question answer is the option D. Let's look at the other options. Plasma contains blood and lymphocyte. Wrong. Plasma is a part of blood, but blood contains plasma. Plasma does not contain blood, and neither lymphocyte. Serum, for now you don't have to worry about it. This is not the correct option. Serum is another term. Lymph contains plasma, RBC, WBC. This is partially right, but lymph does not contain RBC. Some amount of WBC, but not all percent of RBC, because since it being a colorless liquid, it does not contain RBC, and RBC, whatever contains RBC will contain the color of red because of its hemoglobin. The option D is correct because it has plasma, RBC, WBC and platelets. And for the third question, the answer is going to be group O. So if a patient is with a blood group of O, they can only take from people with blood group of O. But those other people who are with any other group, blood group O people can donate to everyone, thus making O group an universal donor and AB group being the universal recipient. So AB group can take blood from other group members, all other group members, and group O can donate to all other group members. And this concludes the chapter transportation in plants and circulation in animals. All the pictures are taken from textbook and Google Images, and all the text extracts are from the textbook only. Remember to go through the glossary and points to remember, and do check the description for extra questions and lecture notes of this chapter. Do please like, share and subscribe, and thank you for attending.